Hello, and welcome to Seriously Pointless Conversations About Culture, the podcast where myself and a few of my friends get together and discuss nerdy things. Just a reminder, if you like what you're listening to, please subscribe to Seriously Pointless Conversations YouTube channel, or you can find us on your favorite podcasting apps. Thank you for your support. Without you, none of this would be possible. Thanks for coming by. Now let's get into the episode.
Hello, and welcome to Seriously Pointless Conversations About Culture, your seriously pointless podcast with all kinds of random information about culture that you may enjoy, and we hope that you do, with all kinds of cultural, nerdy, geeky, interesting things. But anyway, hope you enjoy. I just thought I would give that a shot for the intro. Yay!
We're trying something a little different today. I was fumbling over my words. If everybody was kind of like, where the hell's David at? We're trying something different just to see if it sounds better. And obviously, I think that's the one we're going to go with because it sounds 10 times better than the drunk stuff was coming out of my mouth earlier.
Well, I flubbed up a little bit, but I am used to talking a lot more than you, so.
That is true. But
no
anyways,
offense, I talk a lot. Go ahead.
I'm your host, David, and I'm again joined by my wonderful co-host, Jackie.
Hello.
Hello.
That, yes.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, dreary Saturday afternoon in fall. It's finally fall. I mean, thank God. That's why I'm tired
It's
of summer.
beautiful.
Yeah, I know
I'm a fall person. Like, I think it's beautiful right now. I mean, it's cloudy, which is kind of sad, but the weather is fantastic.
No chances of meatballs, right?
That's not a thing that I prescribe to.
It's all fake. Prove it. But no, anyway, so yeah, that's we're here in wonderful fall colored the Midwest, southern Missouri. I hope everybody's doing fine. Again, like I said, we are your Seriously Pointless podcast that is here to just kind of, make your day go by a little better. And today's topic is actually going off of the orange, the wonderful colors of fall, the burnt orange. See, love that stuff, don't you?
Nice transition.
I know. It's going to be, it's actually about an old nostalgia game that Jackie was super into back in the day whenever she was a kid. Crash Bandicoot. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Crash Bandicoot, but we'll just do a quick little history about it, and then we'll let Jackie start gushing away on it because she actually had a leg up on me as a child. She had a PlayStation, which my parents were like super adamant about not getting me any game systems when I was a child. I don't know why, but I had a computer. I don't know why, but I played a ton of other games. But anyways, so a little bit about Crash Bandicoot. It was originally created by Naughty Dog Studios in 1996 by Andy Gavin, Jason Rubin, David Siller, Charles, I'm going to try and say this, Zambilius, and Joe Pearson. So a really cool thing about this, it was actually one of the first ever PlayStation exclusive games for the system, which this set off a whole generational thing about bringing exclusive content to gaming systems to bring people to those systems. So let's do a quick little where did you first run into Crash Bandicoot, Jackie?
I will answer your question, but first I wanted to say something. To me, Crash Bandicoot is the Mario of PlayStation. Would you agree? I think that I love Crash Bandicoot, and I think that he became the unofficial mascot of PlayStation. Like, Mario is synonymous with Nintendo.
There's definitely a lot of characters and other kinds of mascots, but I would think...
He was it. And, Sonic has... Sega has Sonic.
Like Solid Snake or a couple of those guys. Like, you don't know Metal Gear Solid.
I don't even know what those are.
Yeah, but it's like, he definitely had the same kind of characteristics as Sonic. He had that linear level where you had to bounce on things, gain coins or fruit.
Wampa fruit.
Wampa fruit. I apologize. I am being sacrilegious right now, ladies and gentlemen.
You didn't grow up
on your childhood.
Do you want me to answer the question you asked me? Sorry, I got you distracted.
I know you did. It's a bad thing, isn't it?
Anyway, you asked when I first came into contact with Crash Bandicoot or knew about it.
Yeah.
I bumped into him at the bus stop. I'm kidding. That's facetious.
Old friends.
Yeah. I think he would be a pretty cool friend, though, honestly. No, to be honest, when you mentioned that we did have a PlayStation, I have no idea why we got that. I don't remember asking for it. My younger brother is 3 years younger than me, and maybe he asked for it. He asked for a lot of things. But I mainly played it. Like, we played it together. It was definitely like a fun thing. I think we got it when I was maybe a fifth grader-ish.
Well, that'd be about the time it came out.
Yeah, and we actually got Crash Bandicoot 2 first.
Okay.
I think it's called Cortex's Wrath. Crash Bandicoot 2 is the one that I grew up with, and I didn't play Crash Bandicoot 1 until maybe 3 years after that, and it is so freaking hard. Yeah, Crash Bandicoot 2 is challenging, but I think they realized after the first one that it'd be kind of nice if the average Joe could maybe get to the end of this.
Well, see, that's a whole other topic we're going to get into a little bit later about the games and how much harder they were back then.
Yeah.
They almost spoon feed a lot of stuff to you
They do. Well, and we did play, so Crash Bandicoot 2, 3, and then 1. I think we got the first one after we got the third one. Okay. But I mainly grew up with the second one, and I would say, fifth grade. We had some other, I remember when you get a PlayStation, back then you got a PlayStation, you got a demo disc.
Demo disc or something
that was awesome. And the demo disc had Crash Bandicoot 2 on it, the level with the penguins, I think Snow Go. And I know,
No, it's okay.
Mock me. But, so I know that we got our PlayStation not right when it came out, but a little after, because the demo disc, had Crash Bandicoot 2 on it, so it wasn't Crash Bandicoot 1. It also had Parappa the Rapper. It had Bloody Roar, this fighting game.
Turn around.
Yeah, did you ever play Bloody Roar? You can turn the blood on or off. Mom made us turn the blood off because
But you turned it on after she was gone.
Well, yeah, but you basically it was like a fighting game. But you could turn into animals. And I remember there was a girl that turned into a rabbit, and we thought she was kind of wussy, but she was actually pretty good. There was a guy that became a wolf, a man that became a lion. There was one that became a warthog, but it was called, the intro would come in Bloody Roar, rawr, and then you had to go into settings, and it's blood on or off, and Mom was turn the blood off. But anyway, that's back to Crash Bandicoot, I think we did buy it when we first bought the PlayStation, and then it was just kind of cool, oh, here it is on the demo, but look, we can play the real thing, and the whole level and everything. But I don't know if they still do that with games, but the demo disc had,
a lot of
I think it had 12 games on it. It was actually, you could play a lot. Well, it was pretty cool.
Even nowadays, you have a lot of things on the PlayStation Store or the Xbox Store, things like that, or even on Steam. I mean, you've seen me, playing games, whatever. They have a lot of demos you can download, and they'll do it periodically to let you just try some, or maybe free weekend or something like that to let you try it. So they still do things like that, but they definitely limit the amount of stuff you can do on it.
Yeah, they limited that in the disc too.
Like I said, it's usually only 1 or 2 levels or something like that. Yeah.
Well, and we rented the actual Bloody Roar from Hastings. Man, Blockbuster and Hastings, when those were still a thing.
Kids will never understand.
I know, that was so fun, go into those stores when they still existed.
Yeah, picking out your
before
games,
the apocalypse.
Renting them for a week, forgetting to take them back, and then you have to actually just buy the game outright. It's cheaper to buy the game from them than actually pay for the rental fee.
So I guess that was you. We always took them back.
No, that was definitely a James.
We were responsible.
James definitely did that. Or you just never go back to that
just copping him out.
Yeah.
Never. Oh, well, actually, I will say my mom did that once. Is rented a movie from Blockbuster, forgot to take it back, and then from that day forward, we never went to Blockbuster.
It's just bye Blockbuster.
I know, it's kind of sad. And then by the time I remembered, it had already shut down. So, sad day. Living in the 90s.
Bye Blockbuster.
Yeah,
That's
but
okay. That's a whole
anyway.
other realm of things, kids. It's. But anyways, yeah. So
back to Crash Bandicoot.
No, it's okay. That's definitely definitely not my first interaction with Crash Bandicoot at all. I think the first time I ever dealt with Crash Bandicoot was whenever we were dating.
You came and played it at our house, right?
It was.
I think you were pretty critical about it because you were like, "This is just
that was the age of the Xbox. It wasn't the.
It
I think
is a
one of those,
limited world. I mean, you
I think
can't
it was like PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 area,
Yeah,
6
it's
area.
not a side scroller. What do you
Yeah.
call what Crash Bandicoot is?
Platformer.
Okay, but it's like it's not open world. You can't
No,
just
no, no. Yeah, it's not open
like
world.
not like Spyro, because Spyro
Yeah,
was
Spiral's more
contemporary.
of an open world, but it
to
does
that.
have like areas you can jump in. It's not as contemporary open world as some of the other stuff. It's not as vast as some of the more open world adventure games, but that's more of an adventure game, platformer kind of thing. Crash Bandicoot is just straight up a platformer. It's very linear, but they do a lot of really interesting things with the gameplay in some of the games, and we can go over that here in a little bit. That make it fun and unique. Like I remember there's one setting you can actually go backwards in the level.
Yes.
To get some of the trophies. I can't remember.
Yeah, the gyms. Well, I think that one is Turtle Woods. It's in the first one, like, because you want to get the crystals. The crystals is, well, you're talking about Crash Bandicoot 2. The crystals get you to fight the bosses, but the gyms like can actually like defeat the boss forever.
So we'll get into that in just a little bit, but yeah, that's some of those game mechanics that really make it unique for its time. But anyways, let's kind of like really dig into our history first here real quick before we start
you do that. I don't know the history.
That's okay. So anyways, this was one of the first few games that centered on the protagonist, Crash, who happens to be a Bandicoot. What's a Bandicoot, Jackie? I had to look this up.
An Australian mammal that's basically like a little rodent. Yeah. Like, they're not really that big. Like, Crash does not look like a real Bandicoot at all.
A little bit.
I mean, very tiny.
Very tiny bit. So the only thing I can notice that... So here's the...
What's the definition of a Bandicoot?
Bandicoots are small marsupials native to Australia and New Guinea that use their front feet to dig for food. As they forage for underground insects and larvae, they leave behind a series of small conical holes, snout pokes, which is why he has that kind of like long nose.
I guess the nose is the only real similarity.
I mean, other than that, that's really maybe the coloring. I don't know.
No, not really. They're more brown, but... Well, and he does, like, the whole spinning thing, his attack. Bandicoots don't do that.
No, absolutely not. Well,
no living creature.
Well, it's like Tasmanian devils. Tasmanian devils don't act like that, but they do that in the Looney Tunes like shows, and it's just like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But anyways, so kind of going off the basic premise of what they thought of, they said, so the narrative kind of goes, Crash makes his way through the Wampus Islands with the help of Aku. I think is what his name is. How you actually supposed to say it? A-K-U space
Aku.
A-K-U Aku.
Well, we always call them Goody Gum.
Goody Gum.
Because he says that when you that's the mask, right? That you get to wear. He says that. Yeah, we just said Goody Gums. Like get those Goody Gums. That's bringing back memories.
That's exactly. But anyways, he with the help of Aku.
Just aku. You don't have to say it so strangely.
Aku.
That's just weird. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Okay. Going after Dr. Neocortex and trying to stop his plans for world domination. So actually, Dr. Cortex, after he finds out that Crash is trying to stop him.
Crash escaped because Neocortex has a lab and he's experimenting on these animals.
And he's actually one of his failed
experiments,
quote unquote failed experiments. But
that's why he spins.
I guess you would almost call him actually one of his best experiments, in my opinion, because he's the one that actually works, and all the other ones are like absolutely insane.
The other ones, a lot of them are the bosses, like Ripper Roo, that freaking blue dog that's like insane, like the Mad Hatter dog. And are you gonna get to Tana?
A little bit.
Tana's a little risque.
Yeah, a little bit. So you have these different characters in the games, and as you go through, obviously, like you said, through the gameplay, you're going after the Wampa fruit,
the crystals.
And the crystals.
I guess in the first game, it's gems.
It's more gems,
actually, in the first game, it's literally just get through the level without freaking dying.
Oh, yeah.
And then get to the end and fight him. But you have to have all the gems to even, like you can fight Cortex at the end, but unless you have gotten all the gems, you can't get Tana. You can't, rescue her and win the game.
Why is that? Just, because you have to have a certain amount to get, break open
So we used a cheat code That's not cool, but we used a cheat code that gets you all the gems, because to get the gem is freaking insane. Like, you have to make it through the whole level, get every single box, and not die.
That is pretty intense. That's like
Very
Mario
intense.
on a whole nother level.
It's very, very difficult to do. And so you can actually run past the gym and miss it, and then it goes away, or spin the gym away, which we did on accident one time, and my brother about killed me. But anyway, we used the cheat code. So this is the first game, and what happens is you get to like Cortex's castle, and it's just like this bottomless pit throughout, like all through it, and the gyms. You walk across to get to the end, and Tana is waiting there on a vulture, and you ride away with her on the vulture. But you can't get to her without having all those gems. Like, we got to some insane way, like without cheat codes or anything. My brother and I, Steven, did make it to the end, but we didn't have all the gems. So there's missing gems, there's missing gaps, so you can kind of see the doorway, like where she is. You can't see her yet because there's like a big tapestry, I think, of her face covering it, and so we're like trying to get there, and then there's just like all this hole in the floor, and we try to jump and then just die because you fall in the pit. So the gems, like that's in the first game, and in the second game, the crystals. Cortex says he wants the crystals to save the planet, but then the crystals like are going to help him destroy the planet, but by getting the crystals, you get to fight him and beat him. But if you want to destroy him forever, you get all the gems. And then his old, I think it's Dr. Ingen or Ingen.
Ingen, yeah.
Yeah, he comes, and if you
like
get all the
rocket in
gems,
his forehead or something like
yeah,
that.
like a really long forehead. He's the one where if you get all the gems in game 2, he's like ha ha ha, and then blows up Cortex's like space station or something, and he's gone for good.
Yeah, I didn't get into all that.
Anyway, that's a lot of detail.
No, that's great.
Go ahead.
Because that's the kind of stuff I don't have. I have a lot of like the Naughty Dog history and the involvement in the game series more than anything at this point.
Well, you can continue with that stuff that I don't know about.
Obviously, you go through all the levels, and this is pretty typical in all the games. You go through each levels, collecting the fruit and the crystals, and throughout that
you're supposed to get all the boxes, and that's what gets you the gem.
Yeah, and you get the gems, and then but along the way you fight all these genetically modified animals that Cortex has thrown away.
Like turtles with saws in their back.
And I'm like, how does that
half
even
robot?
work?
Yeah, there's all these vultures that are like half robot vultures.
The plants that attack you and things like that.
Yes, that try to eat you.
You're like, what is this even?
And the moles in the game too, you fall in a pit, and these wretched little mole things come up that are half robot, and they just like go and try and eat you.
Try to attack you, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the kind of the gist of the gameplay, and it's if you go into like the gameplay. It's a very, like you said, a very basic platform. It's very linear.
It's fun though.
But the
I
thing
really
that
enjoyed it.
Made it stand out though is like in the first and second games is that they started to do weird things, like they put in timed levels, like if you beat it within a certain amount of time. Or if
I think the third game they started the timing, but maybe I could be wrong.
Or that first three, because in the first 3 games,
the first 3 games are good.
So Crash Bandicoot in '96, Crash Bandicoot Cortex Strikes Again, which is in '97, and then Crash Bandicoot Warped in '98, and then Crash Team Racing, which is in '99.
That was so fun.
Those are the only 4 that are actually created by Naughty Dog Studios, which Naughty Dog Studios is a huge studio that is owned by Sony now because they've done so many properties for them.
Well, they did Spyro, didn't they? Naughty Dog.
I'd have to look. I believe they have, but they did. They've done Uncharted, which is a huge adventure game franchise.
I've heard of that at least.
They've done. I'd have to look it up here real quick, but they have done so many game titles for Sony. It's unreal. So here's some big ones. The Last of Us, which is another big franchise they did. The Uncharted series. They did the Jak and Daxter series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they did a couple of other like really weird things like Rings of Power, or it's like some of their early stuff.
Did they do Crash Bash? That's like like Super Mario Party. That was the Crash Bandicoot version of it.
I don't see that one.
Because I thought, like, The first 3 Crash Bandicoots and the Crash Team Racing, I remember all of those. But then there was also like a Crash Bash game.
It does. That is later on, so they don't actually do that one. Which I can go over. I'm going to go over that here in a little bit. But
that kind of makes sense. I don't remember that game as well, but I do remember it looking different.
Yeah, I mean, so they definitely do kind of get into a lot of those games, but they definitely, what's the nice word I can say for it? They definitely kind of, from what I can tell, they definitely don't stick around with the series past that 4-year period, or roughly about 4 or 5 year period, roughly, to, so it's 3 years, I apologize, about that 3-year period of where they really put a lot of their heart and their soul into it. And it's hard, it really is, because doing the same property over and over again, I mean, you can attest to this, it's just like, if you're going to get burnt out on something, that's what they end up doing, but they poured their heart and soul, and they did tweak it eventually, like, through each game, they added little things here and there.
Well, like, in the 3rd game, they add Coco, Crash's sister, and you can play as her.
Well, they have a hub world where you can pick which levels you want to go to,
remember? That started in 2, in Crash Bandicoot 2. And yeah, that started in 2, that was also in 3, and in both 2 and 3 you can actually get to like a secret hub world by doing something crazy in one of the episodes. Like maybe it's Bear Down. There's a game or a level called Bear Down where you're riding the polar bear, and if you...
I think it's in 3.
No, it's definitely in 2 that there's a hub world that you get to, and you get to pick the different levels. Yeah, I don't know that the polar bear is in number 3, but he's definitely in 2, because what they did in number 3 is they had Coco riding a tiger instead, and there's a level with Crash riding a motorcycle, and a level with Coco on like a jet ski thing. But it was neat because you could get to these like secret portals and like get more gems. And I remember the Bear Down game, or the Bear Down level, and maybe it wasn't that one, because there were like 3 of the bear levels, like Bear It, Bear Down, and Bear something else. I don't know. Unbearable. Maybe.
You're unbearable.
Yeah, it's some days. But you like get to the end of the level, and there's like this, like a lake right behind you, and it's all like frozen. It's not frozen, but you're in like the Arctic, and there's these like 5 or 6 random like blue icebergs in that lake, but it's like a circular platform you can jump on. And it's one of those things where you see it, and it's like once you get to the end of the level, you could just go in the portal and get to, be done. Yeah. But it's like you notice, hey, that's different. Why is that there? You can go back and jump on those things. And if you jump to like the center one, then it like warps you to the secret level. And it was like, yeah.
So that'd be kind of fun.
Those were real fun to find. Like, I remember Steven and I looking for those, and it was like, man, got to the secret world. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you have like a very fond affection for the original trilogy. What is... And Crash Team Racing, I remember you talking about that quite a bit. That's basically their answer to Mario Kart.
Exactly.
That was when they came out. So what are your feelings? Obviously, you have a great affection for it. What are your feelings for the original trilogy? Just from, let's say, originally from the on the PlayStation, not the PS1, not the PlayStation 4. Because you saw me playing PlayStation.
Yeah, well, I actually tried to play the remastered ones, and I didn't like it because you showed me that, and it just didn't feel right. It was like the movements weren't the same. It looked pretty, but it just didn't feel like the old game. Yeah, it felt like when I would jump, I didn't jump quite as far as I meant to, or too far. It was just weird.
It could be a time thing, like compared to like whenever you were playing it until now and things like that.
I mean, it's been a long time, like from 5th grade to now. Oh, jeez.
It's almost 20 years, yeah. Probably a little more than that, actually.
Ugh.
I know, it makes us old, right?
Yeah, don't talk about that.
Don't talk about it.
But yeah.
But no, yeah, so I never really, other than playing it at your house that one time, those couple times, I never really played it until I actually found it. They did the remastered version here a few years back, and I bought it, and I've actually started playing it, and it is, like you said, the first game is super hard.
The first game is insanity, just like straight up insanity.
It's still very difficult, and I actually got through maybe a fourth of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, screw this. This was making me mad. And so I
Did
jumped.
you do to the second one?
I just went to
The
second
second one
yeah.
is much more palatable.
It's forgiving.
Well, and I think like there's a lot of things where I'm kind of glad we bought the second one first and started with that, because I think if we had started with the first game, we would not have liked it. My brother and I. Well, and it's just funny because there's so many little things. Like, for one thing, it's freaking insane and impossible and unforgiving, like you said. But there's a lot of little things where it's like they made this more palatable for children, because Tana, oh my God, she's like,
oh yeah, compared to
triple D boobs, and she's
like the first
super
game
risque.
Game, huge difference in Tana.
Yeah, and she even like the way, I think in the beginning, like Cortex has her like chained up, and it's just kind of like
it's
very suggestive.
Little BDSM there.
Well, it's just like, I don't think my mom came in when we were playing those parts, or else she probably would have not let us play that game. But I mean, there are much worse things, but for like, I feel like they definitely cut out Tana to be like, she's too much. And then they replace her with Coco.
Well, you know how it is. It's
who's like a teen girl,
whenever
preteen.
they get a hit on their hands, they don't know they have a hit whenever they're first making a game. This is from the first one. Mm-hmm. They're just making something they think they're going to enjoy and make it fun, and they're going to like it. And so they pour all their creative ideas into it, and then suddenly it's a big hit, and they're like, oh, well, maybe. And then that's when the company overlords usually come in and say, you need to make this more family friendly.
Yeah, because, Tana's in every bonus round in the first one. So you do see her a lot if you get to the bonus rounds, and she's not doing anything like awful, but she's just standing there. And a mini skirt, huge chest. As she looks, I think I actually read that they modeled her on like Pamela Anderson.
That would not surprise me.
And she does.
That's a very like nerd guy thing to do.
She does look like that.
I mean, so that's just kind of what guys do.
Be like a furry fantasy. Gross, but.
Sorry if you're into that. It's just not my cup of tea.
Teach their own.
Yeah.
But like the second game with Coco, because I guess I was about the age that Coco looked to be. She's like a preteen girl.
Yeah, roughly,
And in the second game, she doesn't really do much, but she's like sitting there with her laptop, and she's the one who's like hacking into Cortex's computer. You
can't play as her until the third one, right?
Correct. Okay. You can. There is one point where, I think in the very beginning level, you can be her, and you can all you can do is walk around and jump, and do nothing else.
So they were probably planning on putting her in the second one, but they just never got around to doing it all the way. Probably.
Yeah,
because between the first and the second game, that's only a year. That's an insane turnaround in development period. For nowadays, put it in perspective. Since you don't play a lot of games now, it's usually you get between 5 and 7 years is usually an average development time. Or between 3 and 7 years is a good development time normally, depending on how big it is. And even more in perspective, between Naughty Dog's Last of Us 1, which is one of their big hits, and The Last of Us 2, you're talking probably almost a decade.
Wow. Well, I mean, and it's interesting to think of that because they, like, the design changed, like, a lot between 1 and 2. Like, they look...
It's a lot, the graphics
fairly
got
different.
A lot better. They shaded out a lot of those polygons. It wasn't as sharp edges as much.
Yeah.
But it was still there, but they definitely... That's a whole thing.
They souped it up.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, look, that was the difference between PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. Because if you look at because Crash Bandicoot, I believe it came out on Crash Bandicoot 3, that came out on PlayStation 2, didn't it?
I don't think so. I think that the first 3 it was still PlayStation 1. Like, the beautiful thing about PS2 though is you can play all those PlayStation 1 games on it. So we did get a PS2, but I don't think, I know you're verifying it. I don't think
it did come out for the PlayStation original one. My bad.
Told you.
So they probably did have a bit of extra money to clear it out and make it a little bit better, probably.
And I mean, 3 was... I would say 2 is my favorite, but 3 was a lot of fun. Like, you could tell they were getting better and better, like, because then, 2, they introduced Coco, but you can't really play as her, but she does, like... hologram her face in and talk to you of like, hey, Crash, you need to do this. Don't trust Cortex, blah, blah, blah. Because she's hacking the computer systems and such. But then in 3, they bring her in as a character. You can't really walk around. Like, you can walk around her as her in the hub world. And then in the very beginning of, like, the tiger levels. And she doesn't have many levels to her own. Like, she's always riding something like the tiger or the jet ski, or then there might be one like a space thing. It's hard to remember, but
yeah, no, and I understand completely. So, but yeah, so kind of continuing with
neat.
that a little bit. So after that, those original 4 games, the original team actually leaves. So Naughty Dog takes off to do the.
Oh, you're back to history. Yes, yeah, sorry.
It's okay. No, so Naughty Dog takes off to do Jack and Daxter, the IP, which is what they ended up doing. And so that's when you get a lot of these smaller studios come in.
Yes, well, we did rent a Crash Bandicoot game like several years down the road, and I don't remember what it was called, but I remember absolutely hating it. The graphics looked very different, the characters looked different.
So that's when you get
and it was freaking awful.
So after Crash Bash, Crash Bash comes out in 2000.
Yeah, that was just like a fight each other play game.
At that point, that is when you get to.
What's the next one listed?
Crash Bash is from 2000, and then in 2001 is the Wrath of Cortex.
That's the one that we rented, and it was
that's supposed to be
awful.
So that's supposed to be. Was developed by Traveler's Tales.
Yes, I remember their logo.
And that actually, instead of just being primarily just released for the PlayStation, it was released for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube.
GameCube?
Yeah.
Ugh.
So that was the big departure on that. And so it wasn't a Sony exclusive anymore. So that it still had several of the original kind of ideas of Crash, but
I mean, it had the characters.
And they were trying to obviously push forward that.
I think it was more open world in that one.
I'd have to look. But no, yeah, that's what it says. Must travel the world and gather specific crystals and return the elements into its hibernated state, and thwart Cortex's plan to use Crunch as a weapon for world domination. So Crunch, I guess, is...
Crunch is like a bad Crash Bandicoot?
Yeah, the story appears a Crunch Bandicoot, a genetically advanced Bandicoot.
Yeah, I feel like he was... I don't remember a lot about him. I just remember that both my brother and I hated that game. We rented it, and it was so different, and it just looked wrong, and it was not fun, and we just hated it. Yeah, Does it have any reviews?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, good, bad?
It was mostly mixed, it says here.
I feel like if you were not familiar with Crash Bandicoot, it would be okay.
So on average, it looks like here it's mostly receives like 7 out of 10s. So it's okay. It's not terrible. You can tell it's a playable game, but there's some where like they give it a 5 out of 10 from the Xbox version, or a 13.5 out of 30. That's weird. It's a weird like
different rating system.
But the highest rating it gets that I can see here is an 8 out of 10 from Game Zone on the PS2, or an 84 from GameSpy, 84% on the Xbox version. And like I said, it's so mixed in its reviews. It was basically the whole ball of wax that came out of that was that it was just very mixed, and it wasn't as well received as the original ones that Naughty Dog had a hold of. And I think that's mainly because it was an IP that somebody was coming in and they didn't really have the same feelings behind it that the original team had. And I think it's kind of where they lost their way a little bit.
Well, I think too, it just, like for me and my brother, we were used to the first 3 games and really liked them, and then we were expecting something similar and got something very different, and it was just, it's like, I don't know, popcorn versus kettle corn. I like kettle corn now, but I used to hate it because I wanted popcorn, and it's like I'm expecting popcorn and now I'm getting sugar. Like that's not what I wanted. So that's how I feel about that Crash Bandicoot game.
I think it's also kind of a Sony thing too. They were trying to push this IP quite a bit, and so take a guess, how many games between, let's say, 2001 and 2010 do you think they put out?
Of Crash Bandicoot games?
Crash Bandicoot related games, yes.
Like 2?
You think 2 in a 10-year period?
I'm just guessing. You asked me to guess.
Okay, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games in 10 years.
Gosh.
And some
My
of those,
video game days had very much ended.
So they were hardcore pushing out games for the Crash series. And I think they were just trying to kind of
like revive interest in it, maybe?
I don't know if they were trying to revive interest on it. I think they were trying to get as much money out of a well-received franchise that they had originally from the Naughty Dog Studios, and they saw a cash cow. Is what they saw.
Yeah.
And they were trying to get as much money out of it as possible because they do everything from over time slowly. You get kind of a lot of these lackluster games. And you get different things such as they're so different because all these different studios tried all these different things. Like here's an example. The games, some of the games, like here's my notes here. The games vary in tempo so much so that it's hard to find a coherent storyline between any of these games until Crash of the Titans in 2007. So all these games, they pretty much say they end up doing things like, I'm gonna go and just make a whole another universe with this IP. And a lot of times it had nothing to do with the original storyline. Had nothing to do with it. And it was literally this, we have this new mechanic we want to try out, and we're going to use this IP because we think we can sell it so we can keep this mechanic going and we can end up using it on an IP that we actually wanted to use it on.
I feel like Mario did that much better.
Absolutely. And
because they had the same storyline and the same characters.
Well, and the thing is, Mario's done that in so many different other games, such as, like, they do one where, like, Mario Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion, I'm trying to think of anything else.
Mario figured it out. I think Crash Bandicoot, if the Naughty Dog team had stayed with it and stayed passionate, I think they could have
it's just like anybody.
done something like that.
You get burnt out on IPs. They probably had other things they wanted to do. They wanted to do more serious projects like Jak and Daxter. It's still funny, but it was definitely a little more serious. But then they wanted to do things like Uncharted, which is essentially like an Indiana Jones video game is what it was.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do things like The Last of Us as well, which was that's an amazing game on its own. So I can see why they moved on, and it's unfortunately I think the franchise really suffered from it. And so that's when you get things like. So after, let's see, so you get all these games until around about 2010, which they finally kick out Nitro Kart 2 in 2010.
So that's like Crash Team Racing?
Yeah, essentially. And so after this, I guess Sony finally figured it out. After 10 years of mediocre reviews, so let's hear an example here. Let's look at this one. It's called Crash Bandicoot Purple Ripto's Rampage, and it was a joint game with Spyro Orange, the Cortex Conspiracy for the Game Boy Advance. This is what I'm talking about, okay? And just look at this stuff. It doesn't it like look awful?
Yeah, it looks horrible.
And so you're looking at it's a side scroller is what it essentially ends up being. And it's just like, why would you want to make I get it, these are their two big properties, but like, why
try
would
and
you
combine them?
Yeah, why would you try and combine them? It's just awful. The highest review it got was a 7.2 out of 10 on all of those. So it just boggles the mind that, like, why would you take a great property like this and just run it into the ground? But anyways, so after about 2010, I guess Sony finally figured it out after the horrible reviews and the bad reception on all these games. And I guess they finally said, we don't want to try and take our games outside of our ecosystem anymore. They basically stopped making Crash Bandicoot games altogether.
In 2010.
2010. You don't see anything pop out until 2007, which is when they have
to 2017, you mean?
2017, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, did I say 2007?
Yeah,
you did. I meant 2017, which is when you have, I guess they're trying to dip their toe in the water. About that time, too, they were trying to do they were kind of testing the waters to do remakes.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why they come out with the Insane trilogy, which is the
Yes.
remastered version. It's a remake. Actually, they built it, remade it from the ground up, and I think they did an amazing job of this.
I mean, it does look really good. Sorry, I was just going to ask, in between that time, was that when they were into the Skylanders and all that? Because they took Spyro and they did like this Skylanders thing.
Came around that time, probably maybe
Because I kind of remember seeing it in the
like
stores.
2015-ish.
That is such like a cop-out.
Well, that's because our nephew was really into that for a little while.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of thing where it's like, this is just an awful way to get money, but they sold all those little characters that you would plug into the machine and then get something special.
That's why they do that, is because it was another gimmick, yeah.
Yeah, well, and it was awful because I thought, God, thinking from like a parent perspective, like, holy Christ, it's like Pokemon. Like, you have to get every single one. Gotta catch them all. And oh my gosh, gotta pay $20.99 for every single one. $30.99. Oh, this one's $50. What?
It's a more expensive version of Pokemon, in my opinion.
Awful. Yeah,
so I guess they saw that.
I guess they were busy with that, but God, it just looks awful.
So they came out with this remastered version back in 2017, and it was actually developed by Vicarious Visions and published by Activision. So
the Crash Bandicoot remake in 2017.
The Insane trilogy, Insane trilogy.
With the N, because Dr. In Cortex, Neocortex, InGen, Inbrio.
I know. So instead of actually keeping it exclusively to the PlayStation 4, which I was kind of surprised they didn't do this. I think they originally just released it just for the PlayStation, and they released other versions. It was a timed release, essentially. They did in 2017. They came out with it for the PlayStation 4, and then they did re-release versions for Microsoft, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch.
Wow.
So you can get these on all of the other consoles, so it kind of did a weird amalgamation of all of the prior series. Excuse me, I just burped. We're gonna have to take that out. Oh, that was gross. Anyways, so they did a weird kind of amalgamation of the previous series and released it for other platforms, because I guess I get it. They want to put their IP out of there, which kind of brings me back to the thing what you were really saying at the beginning is Crash Bandicoot really a PlayStation-centric icon?
I think he was. Well, he used to be in every single PlayStation commercial. Back in the day.
But they don't do that anymore, though.
No, but he was, because Mario was for Nintendo, and then Crash Bandicoot was PlayStation. He was the mascot. Because I remember they had him in, all the commercials on TV, and it was a guy in a Crash Bandicoot suit.
Oh,
it was kind of funny, yeah. Yeah, so he was. And I would say
originally I think he definitely was.
Back in the late 90s.
You couldn't get it on any other platforms, but I think from this point on they've pretty much settled that they're going to release it for other systems as well.
Well, does Mario do that? Can you get Mario on? I didn't think so.
Nintendo is bad about that. They will never. It is rare that you will see them allow any of their IP go to other platforms.
I was just curious because I never had a connection to Nintendo. I never cared for Mario. I never played those games. I didn't play them growing up, so now I know who they are. Mm-hmm. I'm familiar with, the games, but it's I don't have any affection for that. It's just a thing.
Yeah, see,
I was just curious.
I'm opposite with that. I have a deep connection with that because of James.
Well, your friends, that's what you grew up playing.
And Chris and Cole. Even Cole not so much, but mostly James and Chris. They were really into the Nintendo space, and they still are, but that's just where I got a lot of that from, and I think I've just built a deep affection for it because it's more, I guess it seems more family-friendly to me in a way, and even now I really like it because it's something I feel like, especially with our kid, whenever he gets a little older, it's something that we could let him, if he wants to play games, if he's into that kind of stuff, it's something we could let him do and I know that it'll probably be okay for him to play, and I don't have to worry about him being traumatized.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I would say the Nintendo, with the Mario games at least, the characters are a lot calmer. And that's, I mean, I guess unless you get into the old like movies and animes and stuff, because
Yeah, we're not gonna do that. Yeah, that's gonna be a while down the road for him. So, but anyways,
Yeah.
so Ash, obviously, like I said, the re-release in 2017, the initial reception for it was positive, garnering average to slightly above average scores online from consumers. So even though Sony was tight-lipped about the reboot, there were little hints throughout the development. So this was kind of a cool thing. You see something on hiatus for almost 7 years, almost a decade, and you don't think that it's going to be coming back anytime soon. You really don't think. You think they're done with something, they're not going to do anything with it. But actually, in Uncharted 4, I don't know if you remember me playing that one at all.
I do vaguely.
So there's a point in it where the main protagonist, he's at home with his kids. He's actually playing. He picks up.
Oh, you showed me
a
that
PlayStation controller. Yeah, and he's playing Crash Bandicoot. You can actually go in and play.
I remember that.
And so they make Naughty Dog. This is why I think it's amazing. They made Uncharted, and so they put Crash Bandicoot in their game, the original like code and everything. They stuck it in there so you could play it. So like it had a tiny emulator in their game.
I remember because you showed me that and he's playing the first one, right?
Yeah,
Crash
the first
Bandicoot
one with the level.
1.
Yeah.
And it's like the first level.
Yeah.
I remember you showing me
little
that.
things like that are just amazing.
That actually is pretty cool.
And so that's kind of I just love seeing things like that because it's an homage to just their prowess and their history and how well they've done. And I just love it. I can't say anything else about it. So
Yeah.
I just love it when people put little Easter egg things like that in there. But so it appears that due to all that, they decided. I guess Sony was like, "Hey, this is a great kind of thing. We're getting some nostalgia rolling on this." That's where they actually released Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. So they actually took the original Crash Team Racing and Crash Team Nitro and put them together.
Oh.
So you have those two games put together and actually released it and actually got similar praise. Like I said, it puts two games together. So they put Nitro Kart and Tag Team Racing. So I guess Tag Team is kind of similar to the newer Mario Karts. Have you ever seen that? Where usually you'll have two characters riding on one vehicle.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And they can switch back and forth a little bit depending on what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because some have better power boosts and some have better abilities for driving. And you can kind of go back and forth with that a little bit. So, but to kind of wrap it up a little bit, they actually have they just came out with it, which is the upcoming game they just released, was Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. And if you guys haven't seen gameplay of this thing yet, I watched a little bit the other night, and it is phenomenal looking.
Is it like a companion to the original trilogy?
Yeah, it really is. But they do.
That's what we wanted.
So
like
it's actually
20 years ago.
So it's actually a completely original game.
Oh.
They didn't remaster anything. They didn't remake anything. They simply took an original idea, and I'm trying to remember.
I love the title of it.
It's about time.
Well, and that's because I was going to tell you wanted to do this podcast about Crash Bandicoot, and I was going to say, literally last week in the Target ad, I saw a Crash Bandicoot game.
It just
and
came
I was
out
like,
now.
wait, what? Crash Bandicoot is coming back?
Yep.
Nobody told me about that. I haven't seen him lately.
Yeah, so Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, is a platformer game developed by Toys for Bob and published by Activision. So I guess Activision is really going to be behind a lot of the publishing for the Crash Bandicoot series, which I don't know if they actually own the IP for it, which that might explain why it's getting released for some of these other ones. So it's getting the same treatment, like I said, as the other series. So right now it's only been released for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, which actually released October 2nd of this year. So not even probably a week ago.
Is Xbox still a thing?
Are you serious? You're screwing with me, aren't you?
Not really.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah, Xbox is a huge thing.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You,
And I run the nerd club at school, and I thought nobody plays Xbox there. I asked him about it, and they were like, they'll play
no.
Switch and like
Well,
PS,
Switch is a very,
whatever we're
very
on.
teen-friendly platform because you can take it anywhere.
Yeah, sorry.
So,
Anyway,
Switches
continue.
are huge. But anyway, so
Xbox.
yeah. Wow, Jackie, you're throwing some shade today on some Xbox.
No,
fans.
I have no like connection to Xbox. Just like the same way I feel about Sega. Like, oh, it exists.
Not anymore.
Well, I mean, Sega did exist.
I mean, I think the company
Well, the
still
Sega
exists.
Studios exist because they made that movie.
Yeah, they definitely Sega still exists, but I don't think they
know
make
what other
platforms
movies they're
anymore.
gonna make though. Other
I mean,
than
they
Sonic.
own IP like Sonic and things like that, and they work with Sony. But
Echo the Dolphin.
don't get me started about
Anyway,
Echo the Dolphin.
go ahead.
Which, if you guys want to watch an amazing video about Echo the Dolphin, the Angry Video Game Nerd just put out one about Echo the Dolphin video game.
He's really funny.
It is phenomenal. I love him to death. If you guys haven't got a chance, go check him on YouTube.
Dog.
It's called AVGN. That's his website.
It's a shameless plug.
No, I don't even care.
You don't even know.
I don't even care.
Imagine if he listened to
If
this
he's
and
listening
was
to
like,
this,
dude,
if you're listening to this,
hey, that guy can advertise me anytime.
You know what? You want to pay me to advertise your game channel?
Gosh.
I don't care. If you don't want to, that's even better because I love your show. And it is just phenomenal. And it's just from one lover of video games to the other and how bad they can actually be. It's phenomenal. But yeah, guys, go watch this video. It's phenomenal. Anyways.
Get back to wrapping up Crash Bandicoot. Let's do that.
So the game follows on the new one of Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. The game follows Crash Bandicoot and his sister Coco, aided by their former enemy
Neocortex?
Dingo Dial.
Oh yeah, Dingo Dial. He's half dingo, half crocodile.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, he was really cool.
And an alternate dimension counterpart of Tawana, a former
Of Tana?
Tana, I guess.
No, her name it's Tana. That's the risque one, Pamela Anderson.
T-A-W-N-A.
Yeah, that's Tana, the one I told you that they took out.
Apparently, she's an alternate dimension counterpart of her, a former love interest character
of Crash. Yeah. Oh man, I want to see what they made her look like now.
I can only imagine. So they basically are going through this to try to recover the quantum masks in an attempt to prevent Dr. Neocortex and Dr. Nefarious Troby from enslaving the multiverse. So yeah, and the game actually puts in new elements, including powers used by the quantum masks. They can alter levels. So like I said, from the original trilogy, they're taking aspects that they used kind of in the first trilogy, and they're throwing different elements in it. So I was watching gameplay of it. There's actually one, they've made the levels in such a way to get a certain crystal, you have to actually invert the level.
Oh.
And you have to play like that.
That's amazing.
It's a really cool concept.
Okay.
And I was like, kudos for you guys, for Toys for Bob, for putting out this like that, and actually thinking ahead, saying, hey, these are the kind of concepts we want to have.
Can make it more interesting.
Absolutely. And so you can do this to alter levels and overcome obstacles and things like that. So it's actually really interesting. So the game has additional modes for replaying the levels, and you can actually control up to 5 characters. But right now I only saw 3 in there, which they're Tana, Dingo Dial, and Cortex. The 3 that I've seen people playing as so far.
You haven't seen them play as Crash or Coco?
And I think Crash and Coco are the other 2.
They would have to be. It's Crash Bandicoot.
Well, I think those are the 2 other ones that you have.
He's the poster boy.
Which I think I was watching somebody play additional levels on it. So, but anyways, so far it's received very excellent reviews of it. So, and one of the cool things about this is actually they had the original voice actor for Aku.
And he says goody gum.
He says good gum.
Oh man.
That's right. And he's back playing.
Classic.
He's playing back as him. Yeah. So that's kind of a. And so far, what I can see, it's received crazy awesome scores. The only one that gave it like a mediocre score was videogamer.com, which gave it a 6 out of 10. But pretty much everyone else is giving it an average of 8 8 out of 10 or above. So I have a feeling that I really want to probably get it. I'm not going to lie, at some point. It looks fun, and I think that would be kind of a fun little thing maybe for us
Your
to sit
rating
down.
scale is interesting too. You just said that 7 is like mediocre, like ugh, but then you're like, and it received really good reviews, 8 out of 10. I'm like 7 and 8.
Well, so what's the difference between that? Between a 7...
I mean, not 70% is a C. That's just straight up average. So I guess you're right.
Okay.
And then 80% is a B, and it's like, well, it's okay.
It's above average.
You just have very high standards for games, I guess.
I would
And that's
think so.
fine. Okay.
And also...
When you say awful reviews, I'm thinking like 2 or 3 stars out of 10.
Well, video game rating scores are notoriously hard to try to predict and try to interpret, because some of them are... So here's an example. I'll tell you the different types of ratings they have. So there's 100 out of 100, out of 10, out of 5, and then they have percentiles as well. So it's just like... And there's even some in here that's...
It's not a standardized thing.
It's never standardized, so it's
Fair
super
enough.
hard to do. So, anyways, though, so that's the last game that they came out with, and I'm really hoping that they push for more games that are kind of like this. I mean, so what are your final thoughts and feelings on the whole franchise as a whole, on what you see coming?
Don't have a lot of interest in playing video games anymore, but I'm glad that I haven't for a long time. I just like to sleep and eat more. But like I still have a special place in my heart for the first 3 games. I think they're amazing, especially the second one. And it does make me happy that Crash is coming back, and especially that they're reviving like the original trilogy, something similar to that. I think is amazing, because that was where it was at. The stuff that came after that was just like sad, but like the original trilogy, it was amazing. Loved it.
I think if they keep the care and consideration they have for the original games and the new stuff they make, I think they will have a lot better time, one, selling the games, and have better receptions of the games in the future. So, fingers crossed, that's what they'll end up doing, but only time will tell until we get there. Like I said, we'll just have to hope and wait and pray, and hopefully they do well. So
for more Crash Bandicoot done right.
That's right. Fingers crossed. So, all right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Again, like I said, thanks for stopping by. If you guys like what you're hearing, please rate and review us on whatever podcast network you're on at the time. Those help us immensely with what kind of content you want, and also lets the platform that you're on lets them know that you like us, and that they will hopefully promote us more on their podcast platform. If you don't like what you hear, email us. Let us know. Still a review. I don't care. Because
constructive criticism.
Because we need to know how we can improve this podcast and make it better for our listeners and our viewers. Because, like I said, it's not only for us to have a good time, it's also for you guys that you hear content and hear things that you want to hear us talk about. So, again, our email is in the description. It's seriouslypointlessconvo@gmail.com. We hope to hear from you guys. And like I said, thanks for coming by. And you guys have a wonderful fall. Bye, guys. If you're interested in keeping up to date with new episodes on our channel, add us on any of your favorite podcasting apps, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Seriously Pointless Conversations. If you have questions or concerns, please email us at seriouslypointlessconvo@gmail.com. We appreciate any feedback. Thank you for listening to our show.